Whoops. Hey guys. Sorry, my thing fell over. Hold on. Let me fix this. 2 seconds. Just screw this back on. Why is it? Oh, that's why, because it screws. Sorry, hold on just a second. Let me see if I can do it this way. Hang on. There we go. Alright, sorry about that. I pushed a button and the whole thing fell over. Okay, yeah, it's not supposed to work that way. What's going on, everybody? Wow, was that a night or was that a night? Actually, I kind of fell asleep for the final end, but it was more like a nap than falling asleep because I didn't sleep for, a full night. I kind of just slept for a few hours. I'm running on just, about half a night, but that's not, I'm used to it, so it's no big deal. But, sorry I'm late. I just put out a post on X to make sure everybody knew I was going to be on because, clips have been coming in all morning and I didn't want to miss any of the good ones because, my goodness, there's a lot of stuff to go over, but, I did have a sort of different direction I wanted to take this today because, to be honest, I heard this when I was watching Glenn Beck's show, and I heard one of his co-hosts mention this particular line that I really thought was pertinent to the situation because there's more going on here than just the election part of it. There's also something really, really important to talk about. I don't want to start that conversation quite yet because I don't want to take away from the impact of the actual election last night and what it means because, man, this is such a, more than anything else, it's not just about Trump's election. It's not even about anything political, really. It's really about the fact that what I see is it being the American people saying, no, we're sick and tired of you lying to us and thinking we're just going to keep eating this shit over and over again. Like, we know it's wrong. We know you're lying. We know this is not true, and we're not gonna listen to this shit anymore. We know this guy. He's brazen. He's crazy. We sometimes get mad at him. I don't, but I don't know. I do. But I mean, for all his shortcomings in our eyes, we know where he comes from. We know we felt safe under him, and we know he's not bullshitting us. If anything, he tells us too much of the truth. So we'd much rather have that than some, freaking candidate made in a lab to be the perfect Washington politician in the eyes of the freaking parties that are just a mess for the most part, which is why I've heard so many times people lately saying, I'm only really voting for Trump because of Bobby Kennedy or Tulsi Gabbard or whoever, and honestly, that's great. That's great because, the whole idea, I've heard for years, the Democrat coalition. This is a real coalition. Like, this is how coalitions are made that go down, that are actually worth talking about. And the fact that, for all the criticism of his ego being so out of control, that's a lot of times shared with a lot of people that have a lot of pull on their own, let alone as a group. And just the fact that these people, they're not bought and paid for, that they all share at least some of their goals with President Trump, and most importantly, that they're able to disagree on certain subjects, and that's fine. But they all agree, as does everyone that voted, including me. Just go on record, including me. I guess you guys probably would have already guessed that, but once again, including me, that feels like there's no way in hell that that this guy, no matter what you say about him, this guy is going to be worse than what we've been going through for the last 4 years. Because I remember very vividly when Biden was talking about stuff during the debates in 2020, and even back then, it was clear to me that this guy doesn't know what he's doing. He has no idea what he's talking about. He's just there because the Democrats need a candidate that is actually going to be, useful. Basically useful enough. I just remember him talking about things like immigration, things like All the Democrat talking points, tax rich people more, and we're going to get COVID under control, and everything is blah, 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 blah. Hello, how you doing, Eddie Madison? How's it going, man? Thank you for stopping in today. But no, I remember all that, and I remember thinking to myself, man, this is crazy, but man, it's going to be bad. Who knows what happened? I never would have guessed at that time that meant, you're going to be 4 years later looking at, over 12 million people illegally crossing the border. You're going to look at inflation that's going to basically maybe 3 to 4 times cost you more than what you're paying now. I remember the first time being in California. Going up to a gas pump was never a fun thing, but I remember at one point going to a gas pump and seeing it around $2 and being like, no, there's no way. This has got to be wrong. There's no freaking way. Yeah, man. Me neither. And that is what's even more exciting about this time around is that, once again, the media can say whatever they want and people aren't buying it. And what I really love is I've run across more people recently that are willing to just say, yeah, I can't vote Democrat this time. I can't do it. I ran into this guy. He was homeless even. And he had a little dog. And he actually ran a weed dispensary that he was trying to harvest crops for pretty soon, and he was telling me about how business had been pretty good and blah blah, but he wasn't making as much as he was before. And we kind of got talking about. I don't always end up in situations where I'm talking to homeless people for a long time, but this was a super nice guy, and he asked me, what party? I was like, well, I'm independent. And he said, yeah, me too. Are you voting? Will you vote? I was like, this time I'm definitely going Trump. And he's like, oh yeah, man, me too. I can't deal with this anymore. So even for just other people being willing to openly admit, and I was like, I'm not going to bullshit people anymore. I don't care. I go around wearing a shirt, mind you. And like I said, I'm in California, but I'm in a very strange part of California where to be honest, it's not even leaning one direction or another. It's like a place where politics just doesn't really exist much in this town, which is great because you can go around wearing a Trump fight shirt and nobody even looks sideways at you. Whereas if I was to go to a more heavily dense city in America, or even especially in California. I'm sure I'd get at least some sideways glances, if not a stern talking to, most likely by somebody. But this time around, nobody was particularly afraid to just come out, or at least not as much. Now there was, I'm sure, some of that going on, which is why once again the polls were completely off, and why Trump, for the first time for the Republicans, in since Reagan, I think it was Reagan. It's the last one to win the popular vote, and that's a big deal because that's how far off. Like everybody kept saying, this is going to be a close one. This is going to be a close one. I was like, I don't think it's going to be all that close. The fact that we got, like last time, how long did it take for them to declare Biden the winner? And this time we got at least the results in by the early morning, late night, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it was a very powerful event to see that all happen the way that it did. I look back to the Mar-a-Lago raid. I look back to what it looked like then, what the country looked like then, and how far everything's come. And I'm like, man, wow, this is a much better situation. It's not even close, because who knows what's going to happen between now and the inauguration. I hope that rule that Secret Service was touting about when they were trying to, basically cover their asses as much as they could after he got shot, and the guy that was after the original head of the border patrol, head of the Secret Service stepped down, and then now the acting head of the border patrol. God damn, why do I keep saying border patrol? acting head of Secret Service. He came in and tried to say that, we set up, the necessary detail based on position, not necessarily the threat. That the threat situation is like, okay, that's the dumbest thing you could possibly do, because, say somebody isn't the president, and say people are, calling him Hitler or a Nazi or something terrible, and people start hearing that over and over again to the point they start to believe it. And then say someone gets this idea in their head that, man, we can't have Hitler in America, which we shouldn't. We don't need Hitler in America. I'm not for that. I don't think anybody wants that. But I'm not up for complaining, or up for not just complaining, but going and getting some kind of weapon to do something about it. Like, I don't know, try and take a shot at the president or the presidential candidate, at least, and former president even. So yeah. So I think in that situation, you kind of require a little bit more of a security detail from the Secret Service, because, I don't see anybody that's attempted to shoot Biden, or who knows, whoever it is that's actually running things over there. I don't know. It's hilarious. By the way, the last thing we heard from him was like, he pops in, says Americans are garbage, pops back out again. He's got no problem. He's fine. And it's just like, yeah, awesome. Way to go, Joe. Well done. But anyway, I just I had to touch on it because it was obviously a big deal, and actually kind of interested to hear, because I remember before we actually got to the election of 2020, things were still under COVID, and it was a little bit after the initial surge, so people weren't as freaked out at the time. But people were still not really going many places. But I was out in front of my uncle's house while I was staying with him for a while, and I ended up essentially we were doing yard work, and essentially this guy across the street, one of his neighbors came by. They were friends. They were talking, and they got to the subject of the election. And this was just before. I don't remember if it was before or after the debates. I think it was after the debates, though, because it's like just before the election. It was like actually just before the election, and it's like he kind of made some sort of sideways remark about we could finally get, which, by the way, I had got my uncle at that point. He was pretty much in support of Trump, which I was very proud of, that I was able to get him to see the light, if you will. But no, he was like, hopefully we can get that. I don't know why we put him in there in the first place. And I said, well, I don't know, man. I don't know about that. I don't know about Biden. He's like, oh, you Trump voters? Like, well, yeah, but I mean, even so, I mean, it's just the guy. I don't even think Biden could finish a full 4-year term, really. And he's like, what do you mean? He seemed fine to me. What are you talking about? And I look back now and I'm like, so, about that wild statement I made, was I off that much, really? I mean, can you kind of see now what I was talking about? A little bit? Because I can tell you who does. The Democrat Party most certainly does. They got him out of there as soon as they sensed that, oh boy, we're in trouble. Now they made the dumbest choice they could make, but it was kind of what they were forced to make because that was the deal. But anyway, I don't need to go over all the history again. We all know what happened, and it's just good to see that for all the Brat Summer and all the stupid, ridiculous celebrities, which, by the way, you guys had a few clips that I don't even know if I'm going to go through it now or not, but probably not. I'll stick with the more important stuff. It's good to see, like, after the, man, gosh, look at the last couple of years. There was the Mar-a-Lago raid. There was the lawfare. There was the mugshot. There was the cases. There was the first one with with the crazy broad that was dead. Like, from what I've heard, all her allegations about sexual assault, by the way, was apparently the exact plot line from a movie. Now, I don't know for sure, and I can't say for a fact, anything about it. And she's definitely lying, but I would say she's to call it sketchy would be an understatement. But apparently, I don't remember what the movie even was, but someone had said it was like an old, like, 80s sort of crime film that was like just like in like a investigative movie that was about a guy that it wasn't in a dressing room. It was in it was like a bathroom, but almost all the details she gave were exactly the same. And I was just like, wow, yeah. Well, I'm sure they got someone to direct that whole story, just like they did the whole January 6th committee thing, where they had to bring in a literal what was it? The literal film. Was he a director, or was he? I know he was at least a director for television. I don't know if he directed film, but he was a director, and a cinematographer was also brought in to make it tell the story. It's like, okay, but you guys aren't here to tell a story. You're here to litigate, which isn't even supposed to be the job of the House. The House is a body that's supposed to write legislation, not a body that is supposed to, that's for the legislative branch. Yeah. But anyway, the whole thing's just a joke. But yeah, I when I'm thinking about the way that even everything that Kamala Harris has been doing for her campaign, it's all been scripted. It's all been heavily choreographed, and like it seems like every single detail is planned out very specifically ahead of time, exactly what they're gonna do down to the last. Like, it's so inauthentic. It's like obvious to anybody that's paying attention. It's so ridiculous and rigid and makes no sense. And when she's asked a question, she never answers it with an answer. It's always this weird side story, and so we go through all of this stuff, and it's just like. And all the while, Trump is just going city to city, state to state, non-stop. It's insane. It's insane. And the media is just, pounding him the whole, every step of the way. But I'm watching these debates this time around, and this was the thing that was obvious, is that, first off, they treated this election the same way they treated the last election, but there was a big problem. The last time there wasn't a record he was running on, and this time there was. And it's like, okay, you realize we all know what happened, right? You can say insurrection all you want, but when the guy picks up and leaves when he's supposed to, not at the point of a gun, not with the force of the military or law enforcement, but of his own free will, and doesn't attempt to re-enter, doesn't attempt to campaign at all until after you sick the feds on him. By the way, which, if anyone hasn't heard, there was on top of all that, everything else apart from going into Mar-a-Lago, him not being home, and then raiding the house, forcing none of his attorneys to be in the house while they were doing the raid, going through all of his stuff and all of his family's private stuff, and then to the point where they have to get into the closet that has all the documents, where they know they are, because the last time they had contact with him was to tell him to put a lock on the door with the documents. And the first thing they have to do is break the lock they told him to put on the door to get to the documents they had to get. And it just, I think the most telling moment was when Jack Smith had to admit that he did tamper with evidence technically, because that infamous photo of all the documents laid out on the floor like it's damning, Biden saying, how could this possibly happen? That someone be so irresponsible? Well, ask Jack Smith, because he was the one that did it. He's the one that laid him out to make him look so nefarious, like it was he just had documents everywhere, just thrown around in the house, when in fact they're actually in a locked closet that they had to break into to get to him. Meanwhile, Biden's documents are sitting in his garage. God knows how messed up it is on the, like, how much water damage or moisture damage or just exposure to the sun. Who knows what kind of shit's been going on in that place. I mean, we know his precious Corvette's in there, but I'm not going to fault him on having a Corvette. I'm just going to fault him for having documents and then railing on the other guy. Anyway, but no, it's like, yeah, and here we are. And here we are, and the man got elected again because the country was like, no, we don't care. We don't care about that shit. We need a leader. We need a leader, and we need somebody who's going to actually step up and do the things that needs to be done, because too many people are dying. Too many people are getting hurt. We're all suffering. This is not a situation that we can keep going on. And all we're hearing is a bunch of blabbering nonsense from this side. So it's great. It's great to hear. And once again, even if you're a Democrat, even if you're on the left, I would be, even if you were upset, I would be slightly try to reach for some optimism if you're not someone who's gone off the deep end already, because once again, a Republican president who, regardless of what you've heard in the media, don't just put that shit aside, because he's not coming to try to pass federal laws on abortion. We can just take that off the table. He's not coming for contraception. He's not coming for porn. He's not coming for, whatever else is the fear-mongering tactic of the day. No, he's coming to remove. I would even go so far as to say that even people illegally here who are not, like, blatantly just causing problems and really, really dangerous, even if he goes to the point where he's going to get those people and deport them, it's not going to be until, like, they get into a situation where they're really making it obvious that they shouldn't be here. The only people that are really going to be the most primary, and as hopefully we can get as many of the most dangerous people out. We need to get as many people out as possible that have come illegally, but the focus is going to be on really, really dangerous people, I'm sure, for the first good chunk of the administration. So, and I don't see where the case is that we need to be compassionate to those. Let me just lay it out. Those are the people who happen to probably be responsible in some part to the 35,000, 40,000 at this point, probably missing children that have crossed the border. We have no idea where they are, and they're probably being sex trafficked across the country by the cartels, and who knows, what's going on there. But, like, it's just, if you can look past that, I'm sorry, you shouldn't even be here anyway. And if you're facilitating that, not only should you not be here, I'm sorry, I just got on a limb, you shouldn't be here, around with air and resources and anything, really. I'm sorry to be so blunt, but that's one of those few things I can't stand, and I don't think many people would disagree with me there, but it's one of those things that I can't tolerate, and so these literal inhuman pieces of real pieces of garbage, like actual pieces of shit that need to be just we can remove them by just booting them right in the middle of the ocean with sharks and let them have fun. I don't care. Anyway, so before I get in trouble with any service I might be streaming on, I'll go on to the other subject, which I was going to get into, because there was another thing that, and when I heard this, I was like, man, that's absolutely true, and it's something that we're going to need to face sooner rather than later, because, well, let me get to the clip first. Hold on. Take a second. Once again, mineral water. No worries. Let me pull up the clip. So like I said, this was from Glenn Beck's show last night, and they were. This was actually just before they actually called the election, but I think it was pretty obvious at that point that he was going to be the winner, but they hadn't actually officially called. They were actually in the process. They were just about to call Pennsylvania, because that happened in the middle of this clip. But yeah, it wasn't like for sure, but pretty much at that point, people knew. Yeah, it looks like this is going to Trump. So, is the right folder? No, I don't think so. I think it's here we go. It's this one. Okay. Let's see. Where is it? Where are we? Nope, not that one. Not that one. Man, I'm sorry, where'd it go? Wait, how did I... Oh, maybe it isn't. Where would that go then? That go in videos? Yes, that's exactly where it'll go. Sorry about that. In the wrong folder. Okay. Is it this one? How long is this? Yeah, it should be this one. Okay, let's see here real quick.
I like the idea.
Okay, yeah, there you go. All right. Let me pull up the alternate. There we go. All right. Full screen. So I don't even need to say anything. We'll just get right into it. Here we go.
I like the idea of stepping over the dead carcass while the body is still twitching.
Yeah, I agree.
And claiming victory. That's why I like the idea.
Why are we waiting?
The symbol that it sends of just bypassing them altogether and confirming their irrelevance.
Yep.
And I understand, Trump's from an era where he's 78 years old, and he can remember a day and time when Americans got together over TV dinners and got the news from Walter Cronkite, and he told them what to think, right? And so for his generation, they are legacy brands. And I can understand wanting the satisfaction of having them call your name and claim the victory. But looking forward to the future, every opportunity here to say this era is over. They are not the gatekeepers anymore. And I mean, I would fully take advantage of it.
And they made it this way. They decided to make this an existential crisis.
Correct.
They decided never to speak truth to power, never get out in front of power, and be the lackeys they are. So they chose this, and this is now time for Donald Trump to finally finish it.
So, in case you can't tell what they're talking about, obviously that's the media. And I think that if there's a major message that needs to come away from this election, because this is something that actually Robert Kennedy Jr. was talking about when we were getting into the real meat of the election season, where things were starting to ramp up. This was just before Biden, I think, got, or maybe it was right after. It was around that time. And anyway, he was saying that this is going to be an election that's going to be decided mostly by podcasts and online streams, and not by the mainstream media in terms of people trying to get information about the candidate they want to know more about. It's not going to be as people aren't going to be relying nearly as much on the legacy media in this election, and you're going to see a massive shift towards podcasts and online streams, as opposed to that in this election in particular. And then from here on out, we're likely going to see that every election cycle. And I couldn't be happier, not just from the perspective of being someone who's starting the show and live streaming every day now, but just from the perspective that when you look at what was revealed through all the different times there was something going on online on a stream, especially in the last month where Trump was doing all the media with several different podcasts, and then ending with Joe Rogan, something that people have been wanting for years. I mean, I remember right around the beginning of his first term, people were wanting him to go on Joe Rogan. This was something that was like highly desired for a long time. And so the fact that he did it, and then J.D. Vance did it right afterwards, oh, man, that was incredible. And it was once again, it was refreshing, because for me, I'm like, I'll put on a podcast that's 3 hours or so, and I do a lot of, I'm a nerd, I do my gunpla, so, you got me. But, I'll be around doing something where I'll be painting, I'll be doing something with my hands, whatever it might be, putting something together, or painting something, airbrushing something, doing something, whatever it is. And then I'll always be listening to something. And I used to always listen to music, but when things became more prominent, like audiobooks, and then of course, podcasts and live streams and things like that, I got used to it. And going back to even when I used to do advertising at work, I used to always have something on headphones, working in the office environment. I was like, no, I need this to stay sane. So I've always gotten accustomed to not needing a visual aid to be able to enjoy something that might be, not predominantly a visual work even. Like when audiobooks started really becoming much more prominent, it was it was like a dream come true sort of situation for me, because did I talk about this the other day? I think I forgot. I was going to bring up Animal Farm, and there was a reason. I don't remember what it was, because when I was in school and we were now bear in mind, it was kind of strange. We were required to read Animal Farm, but I was part of I guess a school or whatever. I never had a time where I was required to read 1984, so it was kind of strange. But I was definitely introduced to Orwell, and I loved 1984 as well. But we never were really required to read that one. We were required to read Animal Farm, and I remember at that time, like, I was never into the assigned reading. I really liked reading a lot of different stuff, but I never liked the assigned reading, and I always would just do the bare minimum and never really actually read the whole book. Just read whatever was absolutely necessary that I needed to read to kind of just get through whatever tests we were doing, just because it just always bored me. I mean, I don't know why, but they never. Sometimes even later, I really liked the books that were like Brave New World, for example. Is a great case for a book that I was not a fan of reading for whatever reason when I was in school. But when I got old enough to, maybe I just didn't appreciate it. I don't know what the reason was. But Animal Farm, by contrast, was the only book that I really actually read that was the assigned reading book for the class. And I think it was just because of how, I mean, even though I was in, I think, 8th grade at the time, I loved the messaging. I loved the message. I loved the way it was. I loved it just how natural it seemed to put all the events that were going on and look at them through a lens of like what happens in a society that's newly forming, and the dangers that come up with that, but through the lens of a bunch of farm animals, and seeming like, we have representation for certain groups of people based on what animal they are, as opposed to whatever kind of groups we put people into, because we just have to think tribally, just like every other creature does. But for whatever reason, it's still relevant even to us, because we make it relevant, and it's no other reason really, other than things like being able to communicate, and even in those cases, it's not like there's a bad relationship by necessity. It's just that because I can tell you one thing: after Fetterman's appearance on Joe Rogan, the Democrats are not going to be happy with him. They haven't been happy with him on several occasions already. I think the time that, for me, I always go back to this because this was the time where I was like, first I saw it and I just kind of like, what? And then I watched it back and I couldn't stop laughing, because I still think it. I can't stop laughing because there was DC police, and they were arresting this pro-Palestinian protester, and as they've got him cuffed and they're putting him in the car, John Fetterman walks by, and rather than just walking by and letting the cops do their work, John Fetterman walks by and says, "Yeah, you scum, give him what you deserve," and he's walking by, he's got this little Israel flag and he's waving it. He's in his hoodie and his shorts and he's fucking waving. It was great. I was just like, man, this guy's such an anomaly for the Democrats, because first of all, oh boy, are people like AOC and Rashida, are they going to be pissed? They're going to be pissed about this. But then on top of that, it's just like, he went out of his way, even with props, to make the statement. It was hilarious. I loved it, and then there's just been several other occasions where he's just been this weird sort of renegade that is not, and the weird thing is that like he's not at all. He's not at all aligned with Republican thinking at all. But what I've noticed, especially after the Joe Rogan interview, it's almost like the stroke affected him and made him kind of feel like the Democratic Party is the same Democratic Party from 20 years ago that, like I've talked about when I was more of a leftist back then, and was anti-Bush, anti-Cheney, anti-war, that was basically one of the main reasons why, other than I never really was like into the climate change sort of thing. Now, overfishing and things like that, those were always things that I thought were concerning. And once again, I can say that I still feel kind of like that's not a good thing. But it was not really like and the biggest thing for as far as domestic was the Patriot Act. When that passed, I was like, what's going on here? And it's crazy as hell now that it's almost like the people who actually like the Patriot Act are people who are Democrats, and the people that don't like it are conservatives. They completely flipped, and it was one of the most anti-First Amendment pieces of legislation that actually passed in through the House and the Senate and the White House. And even today, it's still something. It's like 702 of the FISA court, where they would fight tooth and nail to make damn sure that that's not going anywhere. If that ever came up for needing to be reauthorized for some reason, and that's not the same, obviously, as the FISA situation is. But if there, if it was something similar where it needed to be approved every so often, I'm sure that would be under the same umbrella. But the point is that that was pushed by Republican congressmen and signed by a Republican president while we were in a war during a Republican presidency that was started by a Republican president, and that was actually the first war that was not approved by Congress before we went into the war. So there's also, that was the Democrats back then. Democrats now are a very, very, very different party, and it seems like John Fetterman kind of, for whatever reason, whether it was a stroke or just like his relationship with the Democratic Party and how closely he pays attention to the national stance and as far as things go, he kind of just seems like he feels that it's the same kind of Democrat Party that has always been. So when he's on Joe Rogan and Joe Rogan asks him about the border and why, when it comes to voter integrity and the voter ID laws, why would you outlaw? Because there's one thing I can say about this state that is absolutely ridiculous, and there's no reason on earth you would have other than, as John Fetterman pointed out, why would you have a law saying that you cannot ask for it? Not saying you don't have to, saying that you cannot. You're not supposed to ask for voter ID from anyone voting. What other reason would you have to advocate for that law to be put in place? What other reason would you have to actually try to get that law pushed through? If the purpose was not to somehow help your party in the only tangible way possible, meaning even if you aren't legally registered and capable of voting, you're going to be able to vote anyway, which is what we saw recently. And once again, just like the other day when I was talking about on the show, the ballots that got sent in that were a couple 100,000 or whatever it was, and they were talking about, well, the system worked and people found them. It's like, okay, yeah, but the problem is that it's not supposed to happen. It's not supposed to be that, oh, the system's working because the conservatives at the RNC caught the problem and actually made sure that they didn't go through. In this case, I think it was a Chinese national who was here illegally, I think it was, actually turned himself in. I don't know for what reason or if he was turning himself in for another charge and that just happened to be something else he was guilty of. I don't know, but he did turn himself in and he admitted to voting in the election. And so there you have one vote that you can already say is not supposed to be counted, but it's going to be because they couldn't identify it after it had been sent in. So boom, there's one for sure vote that's not supposed to be in. And yeah, it's one vote. But the point is, it's a Chinese national who did it without having any issues whatsoever and had no problem strolling in and saying, I fraudulently voted in your election too. Can you imagine if an American did that in China? Can you imagine if some American went to China, illegally voted in their election, and then strolled into one of their police departments and was like, yeah, by the way, hey, I voted illegally. Like, you'd be lucky if you saw the guy again. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't unless you're part of the CCP. But it's like, no, it's just the disrespect and the amount of how that makes America look on the world stage amongst other developed nations, that we can't even have enough self-worth and assuredness to be like, no, we're making sure that illegal foreign individuals are not able to vote in our elections, period. And it's like, yeah, no, one did, but whatever. No, that's not how it's supposed to work. You're not supposed to just accept that. And when you do, it's just like you are signaling to everyone out there, like, that's exactly the situation with the border. Because the real surge of the problem with the border really came after the whole DACA thing. And I'm not saying whether it was right or whether it was wrong. I'm just stating the obvious that that when it comes to the actual, truth about DACA, if whether or not you think they should be here, that sends a signal that, okay, if we want to get in to the country, we can send our children in when they're too young to know what they're doing, and they'll be taken in, and then eventually we'll be able to come in behind them and whatever. Just skirting around the system, and it's not something that should be it's not something that should have been, at the bare minimum, it should have been touted as this big success or this big thing that was such a good thing. And if you're going to do it, you have to at least give a very strong and stern warning, making sure that people know that now, if a case like this comes up again, we're not going to afford the same courtesy to someone who is guilty of this again. We're not going to do it. So anyone out there who is thinking of doing something as cruel as sending your children alone across the border because you want to be a citizen of the United States, not only will you not become a citizen, if we find out who you are and you attempt to enter the country, we're going to make sure that you do not enter the country and you're held responsible. Period. We're going to do something about it. We're not just going to let it slide. And since he doesn't do that, then that's why you need a guy like Trump. And then when you get Biden in, that's why you get people who originally showed up. I don't know if you guys remember this. When he first took office, you get people showing up under the administration with shirts saying "Biden let us in." So it's just like, you can obviously see the difference. It's insane that. Hang on just a second. I'm sorry. Why is it? Here we go. That was supposed to fade. So there we go. Starts up again. I'll put it back up. Anyway, so the last thing I was going to bring up in regards to this whole situation was if you needed any examples. That went out a long time ago. If you need any examples why they were saying on Glenn Beck's show, what I would hope a lot of people are thinking about the media at this point, that why are we listening to these people? What do they have to offer? Are they giving us any kind of information that we can use, that's useful to us and that helps us? Because Trump being a Nazi isn't exactly news that is important for people to hear. It's not really helping anybody. As a matter of fact, it's making things worse. That's when you get things like Antifa. That's why you get assassins attempting to kill the president. That's why, for everything that Trump does that is meant to be good and be a way to remind people that they're not just forgotten Americans that nobody cares about. The two big last stops with Trump that were not just the rallies, but I don't even know what you call these things, the McDonald's and the truck route, the trash route. Those were obviously sorts of things that made people feel incredibly comfortable, incredibly grateful, and also felt like this is a guy who is not just saying things that we want to hear. He's actually stepping up to show us, like, hey, I'm not only willing to do things that I guarantee you no other candidate is willing to do, but I will make sure that when you do those things, you get what you deserve for having to do them, because you're what our country needs more than anything. The people that do all the hard work, the people that do the jobs that no one wants to do, those are the people that we need more than anybody else right now. And the fact that you are not only unappreciated, but in some cases looked down on But if AOC tries to say some shit like he's making fun of them, he's making fun of them by dressing like them, by wearing their uniform, by going and doing their job. That's wow. Says more about you than him. But once again, this is the kind of thing that if the media actually, had a stance that was even just, even if you knew the stance, but they just reported and minimized the amount of bullshit, then it would at least be a message that, okay, well, they have their opinions, but, at least they're talking about it in a way where it's not just demonization. You never hear it, there's not one time you hear the media speak of Donald Trump in a way that's anything but the worst human being on the planet, Hitler, dictator, gonna, like, the idea that Robert De Niro or whatever washed up stupid ass celebrity thinks that it's a priority in any way, shape, or form of Donald Trump that once he gets in office, one of his main goals is to send the paddy wagons out to pick up Robert De Niro and pick up Ben Stiller and pick up, go and arrest all these people and put them in prison for I don't know, I guess being against him, I guess. I don't know. I don't know where. I mean, I don't remember anything like that happening in his first term. Maybe I'm forgetting it, but I don't remember. Maybe I'm completely crazy and I just forgot the mass arrest of tons of Hollywood celebrities during the first Trump term. But I think if memory serves correctly, nothing at all like that ever happened. And I don't think there's any reason to believe that anything like that is ever going to happen in the second Trump term. But they're sure as hell sure that's going to happen, and they're also sure as hell convinced that well, I'll let them say it, and let me get this clip loaded, and then we'll go on to this one. But this is my case, essentially, for why there really is no point in journalism, in terms of mainstream journalism anymore. When Trump said fake news in 2016 or 2017, how could he say that? And I remember as someone who, as I've said before, was in college journalism major, and learning from a guy who had been in the business all his life and knew the business pretty damn well, was very easily able to admit that yes, most of the media has a pretty strong left-wing bias. This was before it was anywhere near as bad as it is now, but most of them kind of show it in the way that they the guests they have on, the way that they approach them. And this was at a time where, when I'm hearing this is when Fox News was really starting to gain traction. And if you guys were around during September 11th and you remember the media at that time, I mean, there was definitely a message of unification on both sides, but Fox was by far more behind Bush and whatever he wanted to do as far as war went, including when it came to the Iraq War, which once again was so stupid. But anyway, the point was at the time that the guy that was our teacher for journalism mentioned that Fox News had essentially risen as being the sort of counterweight to the way that most of the rest of the media was. It was meant to kind of overtly be a right-wing leaning media organization, because historically the media had been pretty universally left-wing, and they had tried to sort of make sure their bias was kept in check, and they still attempted to be as impartial as possible. But as time went on, and it became more focused on ratings as opposed to their level of trust, that was when it became more lucrative, I guess, or more beneficial as far as a news company goes, that you would be hearing them talk about. I'm not answering this. That you would be hearing them talk about. What do you call it? Well, you would be hearing them talk about things that were not charitable to conservatives, and conservatives on Fox the same way around. Although at that time, Fox was just starting to kind of break away and make a much. I mean, it was really during that period that Fox really, really got everybody's attention because they were so ardently in favor of President Bush, and it was like, and of course now they're there's it's such a different network, but they're kind of more establishment now than anything else, and they don't really seem to. I mean, I'm certain certain people there, I'm sure, are pretty authentic in what they believe, but the organization as a whole by no means is they're not either. They're not neocons and they're not Trumpers. They're not populist, or they're not whatever label you want to put on Fox as an organization. Is not really. They're right leaning, but that's about the extent of it. Like and certain hosts are not even really either right leaning or even right at all, and people try to ridicule the way that Fox handles it. And I watch a panel like on CNN where they have one conservative and the rest of the people on the panel are all leftists, and it's like, so where's the criticism exactly? You guys do the literal same thing, although at least in Fox's case they actually allow these people to make a point, and sometimes I've seen them even agree with them. I don't ever see anyone agree with them. That guy Scott Jennings on CNN, I never see anybody agree with him. They always hate the guy. But like take for Jessica Tarloff, for example, on Fox, and every once in a while there'll be something that she says that they agree with, and it's like, admittedly not often, but even so, like this whole format is just like, and this is what I'm getting at, and this is what this clip is going to be about, is that like this format, it just doesn't sit. When you can watch a 3-hour long or listen to a 3-hour long interview with Trump by Joe Rogan, and people, millions and millions of people are listening to that. All you need is a few podcasts every other week, and you'll have some pretty solid information. In fact, way more information than probably you would need, or you'd be able to get, from legacy media, because the format is just, even if they dedicated a whole show, because you have to take commercial breaks and you have to break it up, and you have to make sure that you have a Q&A section at the end. You have to make, like, there's all these stipulations based on the model of old school news media, and it's just, in this day and age of social media, of the internet and technology that has far outpaced where it was 50, 60 years ago, the format that we're using, as well as the way that rhetoric has changed to where nobody's afraid to, not that there's any First Amendment reason why they shouldn't, except that as a journalist, there should be some degree of integrity that goes along with, it being the idea of being the counterweight and being the bulwark that is there to protect the people from a leader that is deceptive. And now they're partnering with the deceptive leader in opposition to the leader that is not deceptive at all. It tells you exactly what he wants to do and what he's thinking. But anyway, that's my pitch right there. But anyway, let me pull this clip up. It's not super long, but there's a handful of examples of, and most of this is, I think all of it is in response to the results last night, and just combination of delusion and more or less useless commentary that serves no one. But Hold on just a second. Let me pull that up. I think it's this one. Oh, wait. No. This one's in the other folder, I think. Yeah, here it is. Okay. Okay. Just under 6 minutes, so here we go. Now this is a compilation clip I just put together. Some of the, like I said, some of the reactions to last night's results, and here they are, as in all their glory. Hold on just a second. There we go. No, still not. What's that? Oh. Wait, what the hell? Oh, I opened the wrong thing. Did I? No? Okay, what is that? Oh, hold on, I think it's because... No, it's not. Why is this? What is it? Okay, here, let me just minimize everything. Well, here, let me try starting it and see. I don't know what's going on here, but did I do something wrong? What is this?
We've laid out the...
What the fuck? Here, close it, open it again. Do it like this.
We've laid out the stakes in this crucial election.
No, it's still doing this.
One side stands for...
Okay. Okay, we'll do it like this then. I had to do this the other day, so let me... Sorry, guys, I don't know what's going on here. This is driving me nuts. There, we'll do it like this.
Stakes in this crucial election, where one side stands for freedom while the other meets the textbook definition of fascism, namely a far-right dictatorial regime like Hitler's Germany or Franco's Spain or Mussolini's Italy.
I think when it's all said and done, what you're going to see is a huge divide over people who are college educated and not college educated.
Black voters came through for Kamala Harris. White women voters did not. Pure Project 2025 in miniature in Florida. And that kind of extreme, sort of extremist right-wing fascist type government in Florida, does that make it a more attractive place?
Thinking about the people who are not a part of anybody's elite, who are hurting tonight. There are African-American women who know a little bit about being talked down to, and know a little bit about having their economic dreams crushed, who tried to dream a big dream over the past couple of months. And tonight they're trading in a lot of hope for a lot of hurt.
I think that in 2016, we didn't know what we would get from a Trump administration, but we know now. And we know now that he will have almost unfettered power. And so I worry, not about myself, actually. I don't worry about my station in life. I worry about the working class. I worry about my mother, a retired teacher.
Right.
I worry about our elderly and their Social Security and their Medicare. I worry about my children's future, especially my daughter, who now has less rights than I have. And I remember my father telling me many, many years ago that I was the first person in his family to enjoy full civil rights. And now I have less civil rights than I had when he told me that. So again, I'm profoundly disturbed that the 14th Amendment of the Constitution did not prevent someone who participated in an insurrection from becoming president of the United States. I think that going forward, the convicted felon box on employment applications better be taken off, because if you can be the president of the United States, then you should not be prevented from employment in this country, because I remember
I didn't
applying
exactly
for
watch
my
all of
jobs
this
as a
before.
federal prosecutor, and there was a box for convicted felons.
Well-
and so that box better be taken off. And I think our healthcare system is now at risk. I think
No fluoride for anyone.
yeah, economists have made clear that he's going to increase the debt by $7.75 trillion. I'm worried about mass deportation and internment camps, and I'm also worried about Elon Musk warning Americans to prepare for temporary hardship. I'm surprised at the result, but I'm not surprised. As a woman of color, I was so hopeful that a mixed-race woman married to a Jewish guy could be elected president of this country. And I think that it had nothing to do with policy. I think this was a referendum of
No, it had everything to do
cultural
with policy.
resentment in this country.
Well, I think it has to do with a lot of things, that being one of them. I'm obviously very disappointed. I'm very
Oh, you
sad.
don't say.
I was at the Kamala Harris headquarters yesterday in Washington,
course you
and
were.
it was a very sad scene. The mood turned immediately.
Well, I want to dig further into the demographics, because black women tried to save this country again last night. 92% of black women voted for the vice president. You have Latinas in the 70 percentile voting for the vice president. What we did not have is white women
when they do this.
who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men actually voting more for him, and you have and black men was not the story. We're not the story here, because they voted almost 80% for the vice president.
Right.
So why do you think that uneducated white women voted against their reproductive health freedoms, and why do you think Latino men voted in favor of someone that's going to deport, says he's going to deport the majority of his community?
White women like being called uneducated white women. I think the economy matters, national security matters. But when you put people in these boxes, I think that's a takeaway from this race.
We have to look at the demographics.
Hey, Rev, really quickly, too.
Oh,
Democrats
boy,
need to
the
be
best.
mature, and they need to be honest. And they need to say, yes, there's misogyny. But it's not just misogyny from white men. It's misogyny from Hispanic men.
Right.
It's misogyny from black men. Things we've all been talking about, who do not want a woman leading them. Might be race issues with Hispanics. They don't want a black woman as president of the United States. You know, the Democratic Party, I've always found, when you're sitting around talking, they love to just sort of balkanize everybody into these separate groups and say, oh, white people don't like women and black people. No, it is time for the Democrats to say, okay, and you and I have talked about this before, a lot of Hispanic voters have problems with black candidates.
Right.
A lot
and
of,
with other Hispanics. You
And-
got some
and-
that
exactly.
don't like each other.
yeah,
and
self-hating,
some of the
yeah,
most
self-love.
misogynist things I've heard going on this Get Out the Vote tour came from black men. I mean, misogynist things. So you're absolutely right. It's not simplistic. And we've
Right.
got to have real honest conversations about it.
real honest conversation.
Yeah, the misogyny. I got 2 words for those guys. Sarah Palin. I'd love to see the reaction if she went up to, get elected. But yeah, that I mean, says it all right there. That's their take on what happened. What's going on there? Oh, it's on the, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Oh no, that's my Monster, and that's my smokes, and that's my drink. Sorry. Anyway, but yeah, that's their take. That's their take on what happened. That, that's what it is. It's all the misogyny. It's all the uneducated white women. Apparently, that's a new one. I didn't hear that one until this one. But yeah, that's whose fault it is. And you notice how, what I can't get past is how entrenched these people are with the tribalism. It's beyond identity politics to the point that this is just pure full-on tribalism to the point that it is so absolutely degrading to a society when you start. I mean, this was supposed to be a melting pot, right? That was the whole point of America. But when you stop creating a melting pot and you put everybody in their little groups, and it's like, the only other group of people in any kind of organized group of people that do it so overtly, prison. Prison is the place where people segregate entirely by race, and if you operate outside of your racial group, oh, man, and you're not like the head of a prison gang or something, or there's not business being going on, you can expect an ass whooping at least. I mean, you're gonna get something bad's gonna happen. And there's that famous part in American History X. That's not an exaggeration. That's not bullshit. That's what happens when you're not a big, you're not like a shot caller of any kind, and you go openly hanging out with another racial group, especially if you're already part of a prison gang. But even if you aren't, it doesn't matter. You don't associate yourself with another race, period. And it's so ironic that that's the way the Democrats seem to always want to cut America up into racial demographics. Let's have all black college graduation ceremonies, all black dormitories. Okay, let's make it more like a prison. It's insane how that is the mentality, and even more like you couldn't get a more racist symbol of American society than what Democrats want to force on America. Period. It's not even close. So, anyway, that's my case for why it's time to sort of just let these people fade into obscurity. Nobody really. And the most important group that's going to be hard to kind of get them to sort of pull away and from kind of viewing these people for what they used to be as opposed to what they are, is same as Trump, is going to be senior citizens, elderly people, people who are of a certain age group that were around during the golden era of journalism in the United States, and remember what kind of integrity they had and what kind of good they were able to do. And now look at what they do. Look at what they do, and ask yourself the question: Is this worth my time? Is this worth my attention? Is this worth paying any serious amount of attention to and taking seriously? And I can basically say, like 99% of the time, no. And even if it is, there's much better, more reliable, and more honest, frankly, sources you can get it from that won't be putting their interest into the story in any way, won't be thinking about their boss at the time and worried that if you don't say what you're supposed to say, you're going to get in trouble. There's people that aren't beholden to anybody that will be able to bring you that message just as good, if not better, than people in these organizations. They just don't have. In some cases, they do have the same reach, or more. I mean, I think one of the major reasons they hate Joe Rogan and Elon Musk is that their reach is just like, if they had even close to the amount of reach that they had, we'd be in big trouble. But no, their era is gone, and the kind of journalism that people remember for the quality and significance, what we're seeing today is like a bad, distorted reflection of it. I mean, there's nothing left there that's really worth trying to salvage, because I mean, alternative media is already taking off like a rocket. It's going very well for many news and independent reporters, and James O'Keefe and his group just has been breaking recently tons of major stories, and he's getting in trouble every step of the way, but he's still doing it. And I'm not the biggest fan of the Daily Wire these days, but I can't say one bad thing about. I do like Matt Walsh. I can't say one bad thing about him. And the Am I Racist documentary or mockumentary or whatever you want to call it, that was one hell of a success. It was that was one awesome film. And yeah, so I mean, like there's things out there for everybody, and there's people out there who are not afraid at all to get into the weeds of a conversation, really have the tough conversation that needs to be had. And so, once again, RFK Jr., as he said at the beginning of the election, he was totally right, because I think that probably the nail in the coffin at the end was that Joe Rogan, Trump would go on, J.D. Vance would go on, even freaking John Fetterman would go on. Kamala Harris wouldn't. Not unless Joe went to her and they could do it for an hour long. That's not how Joe works. That's not how Joe operates. And that wasn't him saying no and being biased. That was him saying, no, you're not doing it the way that everyone else who ever does my show does it. Like, I'm not giving you special treatment. I would love for you to be on to a show that gets millions and millions of viewers each episode, but if you're not going to take me up on that, then okay, sure. Never mind then. I mean, it's insanity. This woman, and then the media kind of went, like, maybe if you got your head out of your own asses for just long enough to peek and see what's going on up here, maybe you'd know. But they just can't let go. So it's up to us. We got to let go. And by we, I mean anybody who's left that's still watching them. With that note, I'll leave it for today. So, thanks for watching. What an awesome freaking turn of events for us to end up at with the now President-elect Donald Trump coming into office next year. Hopefully things will start to head in a direction that is a little bit more favorable to the rest of us Americans, and be much better days ahead. But in the meantime, we'll just keep our fingers crossed and hope that everything goes smoothly. Let's hope there's no January 6th on the left side. I've heard that sort of ridiculous, stupid. I can't even stand. Even on January 6th, I hate January 6th. Anyway. That'll be it for today. Thank you guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow. By the way, I have solidified the schedule. I'll just let you guys know now. It'll be 11:30 to 12:30 on Pacific time. That will be what's that? 2:30 to 3:30 Eastern. And to my friends across the pond, I believe that is 8:30 to 9:30. I think. Might be a little bit earlier than that. You have to check. I'll try and get the information up. But yeah, I'm just basically pushing it a half hour up because there's as I've learned from the last few episodes, there have been several instances where getting all the clips together and cut just ends up taking a little bit longer than I thought, and having that extra half hour just is exactly what I need. That being said, sorry I've been late a couple times. I just especially today, there was just stuff rolling in. So that's why that took a little bit longer. But I will be making it by 11:30 tomorrow. So I will see you guys then. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic afternoon, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
Now, I can't read it. There's no words on it.
Okay. Ready? Sure.
There's no words there. To play us out. What does that mean? To play us out.